I'm on a cycling tour across Japan. I've sliced up my misadventure into different topics, so you can choose what you find interesting to watch. This video will be about things I found great or just interesting about Japanese culture. Firstly, and most importantly, the people. When I started this trip, I wasn't sure if I was going to be welcome in the more rural parts of Japan. When I think about rural America, or even rural parts of European countries, sometimes you can find a spot where people aren't as welcoming, to say the least. But during this trip, there was not a single person in Japan that made me feel unwelcome. Much the contrary. I had hosts who were warm, met cyclists that were supportive, and more than once strangers offered me food and a chat, despite our language barriers. That last one is especially rare in Japanese culture, as strangers don't often socialize, at least in the big cities, that is. Out of all the people I met, there are two stories I want to share specifically about the people. Firstly, Miki-san.
Kanpai.
When I travel, I sometimes use the apps called couchsurfing and warm showers. These apps let locals offer free accommodation to travelers, and a cultural exchange gets to happen. It's difficult to arrange sometimes, especially since COVID destroyed much of the user bases, but it is amazing when it works out. Miki was a much older gentleman who hosted me in Sakata with his two cats. I was around the 150th backpacker he hosted, which is an unbelievable number. He ran a business out of his home and shared many stories with me. When he was young, he had also had a cycling tour around Hokkaido. He showed me songs he listened to when he was young, stories of his travels, and what he thought of the current political state. What amazed me most was when he was young, he used to create art, but gave it up for work. However, only a few years ago he picked it back up again. This is his art. Look at that! He's only been drawing a few years. A backpacker set up an Instagram for him, and when I checked it out, he had over 30,000 followers. If you're interested, you can check out his page, and he even sells prints. I'll link to his Instagram in the description. He still never followed me back. This next individual saved me. I'll post a separate video with the entire story, but this part begins with a man named Kenta. My bicycle broke, and I was hitchhiking near Akita. I had attempted to fix my bicycle multiple times, but alas, I needed to get to a repair shop. The small local bicycle shops I had visited in small towns either were not able to communicate with me due to a language barrier and age, or did not have the parts due to my bicycle having a more rare size in Japan. After many cars passed, I was getting pretty dejected, but soon enough, Kenta pulled over in his small pickup truck. We translated through the phone, and he offered to help me. He tied my bike down in the truck bed on top of some wood he had just purchased and drove me to his home. On the way, he talked about the Lakers and where he was from, which was in one of the most remote parts of Japan in the northeast of Hokkaido. He had moved to Akita for love, and he shared that he also has a bicycle and he might have a spare tube that'll fit mine. When we got to his house, he gave me the tube, snacks, some sports drinks, and a pump. Thankfully, the tube fit. During all of this, he was helping people work on his house since it was flooded during a recent storm. That's what that wood was for. He wanted nothing in exchange for his kindness, and I left with a warm heart and rejuvenated energy after a tough couple days. I have nothing but raving reviews about the Japanese people during my trip. Here's one thing I don't like about Japan, however. Single-use plastics. The wrappers, the bottles, the bags within bags. Everything creates garbage. But that's not where this point ends. Japan practically does not have trash cans. Well, Japan doesn't have public trash cans, rather. Aside from convenience stores, you'll be hard-pressed to find somewhere in public to throw away your garbage, leaving you with crowded pockets, or in my case, cramped space on the bike. So why aren't there any trash cans? Well, there's an interesting reason actually, but it's not very pretty. In March of 1995, members of the cult Aum Shinrikyo released a poisonous gas called sarin in 5 coordinated attacks in the Tokyo metro. This led to the death of 13 people, injured 50, and caused other harm to another 1,000. Their motive? The cult believed Armageddon to be inevitable in the form of global war with the US and Japan. The cult also believed non-members of the cult could be saved if they were killed by members. After this tragic event, the Japanese society was traumatized. The perpetrators were punished, but going forward, what could the Japanese government do to alleviate the fears of the people? Well, one implementation was the removal of trash cans in public spaces so dangerous chemicals or other weapons couldn't be stowed within them. The effects of that decision can still be seen today. In my opinion, I don't believe the removal of trash cans would be very effective in preventing terrorism. However, I do think that the Japanese society felt reassured after seeing their government take action. And in the end, I think that was the main goal and why there are few public trash cans. Jumping to a different and less grand point of Japanese culture, the slippers. Nearly every Japanese home or accommodation has a small area in the entrance called a genkan that is reserved for changing shoes. You don't wear shoes inside, it's taboo. Instead, you change into a pair of slippers that are meant for the indoors. What's even more fascinating is there's another pair of slippers that you'll switch into when you go to the bathroom. It's a constant shuffle, and I found myself using the wrong slippers when I forgot to change them since I wasn't used to it. But I did like it, and it kept places clean. I liked biking in Japan, with one exception: Tokyo. Now I love Tokyo, but cycling in Tokyo was just okay. But the part that I really struggled with was parking my bike anywhere. If you've seen videos of tiny apartments and narrow homes of Tokyo, then you'll know real estate is extremely cramped and expensive in this city. So much so that even parking your bike anywhere means trouble. Japan is a country that follows rules very strictly. Jaywalking isn't even very common. This carries over to bicycle parking. You can't park your bike in places that aren't designated for it, which were usually several blocks away from my accommodation and costed money. I found this out the hard way twice. Once at my friend's apartment when they moved my bicycle into the street from their racks, and the second when someone left a handwritten note on my bike saying they were going to call the police. I started filtering accommodation there into places that only had bicycle parking because I was afraid of losing my bike. I like how safe and clean and orderly Japan is, but those characteristics come at a cost, as the law-abiding culture is very intense. This leads me to the part I disliked most about my entire tour in Japan: bringing my bike on trains. There were times where I needed to take a train, like getting to the start or skipping a small segment. So why was this so much trouble? Well, bicycles need to be put in bags called rinko bags when going on a train in Japan. This is to keep the train clean. The trouble? Well, you need to disassemble your bicycle to fit it into even the largest of rinko bags. I would bike to the station, take time in a busy public area disassembling my bike, then I'd have to carry my disassembled bike and all of my bags and belongings at one time. My bike was heavy, and imagine carrying that, camping gear, clothes, etc. up and down stairs, through doors, while buying tickets, in heavy pedestrian traffic. This is Japan. It was a nightmare. To add to it, there aren't any areas of the train designated for bicycles, so they would be blocking the entryways. I'd have to move it back and forth in the hall to make sure people leaving or entering the train could have room. I hated taking trains for just this reason. But to look at the positive side of things, my aversion to trains stopped me from skipping sections of the trip. The trouble kept me on the bike. I'd like to quickly add on to this: trains in Japan are outstanding. They're clean, they're fast, they're comfortable. They're just not designed for bike packers. When it came to bathing, there were so many onsens along the way. Onsens are Japanese hot springs, which are split by gender, where people bathe. They can also enjoy saunas, cold plunges, and other amenities. Often they offer accommodation as well. But be prepared. You are stark naked at them. I was pretty nervous when I first went. Everyone there was Japanese, and although I am half Asian, I did stick out a bit. As a blonde white woman, my friend Jules stuck out even more, per her anecdotes. But most of it was in my head, and people are there just to enjoy their time. Nudity isn't as big of a deal in Japan. It was my own ignorance and culture that made me feel the way I did. Here's one quick thing I wanted to mention about the culture. I had to be far more cautious buying sunscreen in Japan. Fair skin, historically, is considered beautiful there. This beauty standard dates back to over 1,000 years ago, during the Heian period. So in the 1900s, skin whitening products hit the market. And sometimes those products ended up in the form of sunscreen. I did not want to bleach my skin. So just make sure to translate the labels and do a bit more digging before you purchase sunscreen there. I know I pointed out some negative things about the Japanese culture in this video, but I want to clear the air and say that I love the Japanese culture, and it was a huge reason why I chose to do my tour here. I'm just sharing what I saw and what I found interesting, and I'm leaving out a lot of positive things because, well, I think the world is already well familiar with them. But that's it for this segment. Keep an eye out for the others coming out soon though. I experienced some crazy things, like getting stalked by some religious extremists, so you're not going to want to miss it. Make sure you subscribe to check it out. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.